Hey there, Knights here. Welcome to the series 17 of Unity Beginner Tutorial series. In this we will be moving in depth with some components in the inspector. And the final target is to make a pane volume out of that. By set, let's hop into it. Hey guys, welcome back. Before stepping in the pane volume stuff, let's create some let's go in depth for the inspector stuff, which is for a cube mesh render. So which is like I have created here in the scene. You can see that I created like a plane and with the textures and assign that textures like to the plane. What this says that I created a lot of folders but I created a pane volume stuff, but it does not have. Just create a pane volume stuff and create a texture by left clicking here and create a cube. At the moment, if you see, look at that, the cube will be a way off to the ground. So the easiest way to pull that back is to make the cube as a prefab. Before that, let's change the name as entering F2, and easy ways to F2 and enter the name here. It's called as pane volume. Let's make it a PV01 and right click here, hold right click and drag and drop in your assert part in the folder part. Now if you can delete this part off, and if you click this and right click and drag it to the win space, you can get it here, and you cannot able to drag it and waste about the time there. Now it's all saves the time. Now if you want to you can make the object bigger, that will look good. And I will move a little bit up to the ground. So if you look at this, you have a 3 coordinate system. This is red is X for the X, and green is for Y, and blue is for Z axis. So after that, let's click this, let's save that, Control and S to save that, and let's click the cube, and here let's get into some in-depth details we are talking about today. In that we have a first component. I will close up everything, just don't worry about that. We will make from the top. So if you look at that, just leave this stuff, we will come over in the later stuff. Now let's look at the transform sub. In this transform sub, what does the transform stuff means? That what in this world space the object moves, rotates and scales. What this means, it can move on X, Y and Z axis, scale and rotates. You get bigger and rotates the object. I will show what does it make sense. Now if you look at this x-axis, it is an 598. Now if I increase this, you can see that it moves an x direction, likewise similar to y and z. Now if I rotate in a x, you can see that the cube just rotates with a axis for x direction. Now it should be the same to a y. You can see that y rotates in the y axis and similar to z axis. Now what is a scale? Actually the scale makes that much bigger the object. For example, if I increase the x axis, you can see that it will increase in the both side. Now in the single side, it will increase in the both side in the same amount of increment. Like if I have a 9, if I increase it like 10, it will use a 0.5 and 0.5 in either sides to increase it. I will get it back. So alright, so like that, the x and y and z should be the same here. Now this transformation makes us easier to implement in your workflow and make the script more complicated and stuff like that. You can make with that really easy stuff like moving and making that like that. I will make this in the by the vector. You got a vector stuff like that, vector 2, vector 3 and vector 4. We'll be using like in the 2D we will be make use of vector 2, and in the 3D will be use of vector 3. I will go in depth in the next video about that. Now let's get into the cube, the mesh filter. actually what is a mesh filter? It is not a it is a actually it is a mesh filter basically by the name. And this mesh filter is actually the cube, how the object look like, the boundary of the object. If I change this mesh render, if you notice that it's my other screen, if you notice that you can change that object by I will reopen it up in the you can see that a circle right here. Just right click that and it will open up a window. In here you can select with whatever you want. It will change your shape but not the volume. Okay, this is what if I click here in the settings panel here, and what if I remove this component? It will remove completely everything. Okay, now we have covered this part up. This is the main important stuff here. Now the reading the box collider, let's get into the it later. It is used for a paint volume stuff like that, so I will delete this over. It's not useful for now. Now let's drop into a mesh render. Before entering in the mesh render, if you look at that, you have a material. What if I create a material right here? If I go to the the asset here and create a material here and call red. Now I will assign it like red color, pretty much red color. And now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to drag and hold right click and drag and drop here. If I did that, you can see that the shader mode is constant in this in the standard mode. I will go through that in the later part. And we got a lot of stuff here, playing stuff. First we have saw that in the previous, but I will explain it today also. We got a albedo, which is mean the texture, whatever you texture use. That's like a simple one, like a photographics texture, and the same as a metallic, how metallic the object looks like. And you got you have a playing volume of 1 to 0. You can play with that. You can change the cube into metal. Now I will be leaving it 1 because it's weird. Now it looks good. And the smooth volume, you can set it like it's how smooth the object should look like. Now I will set it back to 0.5. And now the normal map is basically like the height of the map. Not look, if you had the normal map, the photograph will look like as it is original, but it will not look like it is a made in photograph, made in captured with a photograph, like that stuff. The height map is the denotes that how height that maps look. If you add a texture, you can change that height of that texture every bit. And oscillation and details, as for detail masking for how detailed the object look like that. We have a tiling like that. In this you can see that I have put the tiling to 5. It means that how the object, how the texture should look like in the process in this view. So this is how the object look like. Now in this we have a secondary mapping also. This enables us to implement a large more amount of detail and get more depth, and as well as the about the true color of that object, like that stuff. Now let's get into let's get into the mesh render here. Now if you look at this mesh render, we have a lighting tab. If you open that lighting tab, we got a whole bunch of stuff in here. Now I will move it back here. Now if you look at that, you got a shadow right here because of this object, and we got a directional light here. So that's why we got a shadow here. What if you change the directional light? I will show you where's the directional light. Okay, it's way too below. Okay, I will change it in the preset right here. You can also change it in the transformation right here. In this you can change it. Sorry, I've been changing the position. Now you can see that this x-axis won't change anything. And oh, I'm in this I'm in the camera. All right. Okay, now if I change the x-axis, you can see that the object of the shadow changed the position. right there. And now I'm going to get back to what we making here, and let's collapse this up. Now in the lighting tab you will have a lighting props. In the lighting props, what is actually lighting props? It's a based on the interpolation mode. What is an interpolation mode? If you ask that, it's an estimation of a value of a determination in the shape of a animation that occurs in the each 2 frames. Now if you look at that, you got a blend polar props, blend props. Now in this blend props you got a if you click that, if you right click that, you got off blend props use proximity volume. What is that? What is that? I'm just confused about that. Now if you turn this off, what it does? It does not renders. Actually it does not renders, used for only interpolation light props, which does not get the light from the source of the light. Now if you look at that in the blend props, you have a rendering mode available for the interpolated light props, like it is a default option which is been set by Unity as a default. Now if you go into the next part, you got a use proxy value. What is a use proxy value? It's a rendering used for a 3D render, grid interpolation, light render, like that stuff, which is for making the render used for a interpolation time for rendering the light source. Okay, let's hop into the next one. It is a anchor override. What is an anchor override? Which is like a transformation tool, which you can access this transformation tool and blend the light props into the anchor override to use to determine the interpolated position when the light probe or reflection probe system are used there. Now if you look at the next option here, you got a cast shadow. What is a cast shadow? It is based on how you render and how you got the sun source, and you got the lighting facility, and you got this shadow there. So if you turn this off, what it does, what is the means that what else the light get inside here, it just does not mean that it is a like it is a transparent object and just passes the light through that. So if you turn this on, it like it become an like opaque object, so it makes up shadow here. Then if you look at this, receive shadows. Okay, I thought that cast shadow is casting the shadow. Then receive shadow, what is that? Receive shadow. Okay, I will get into the next object and explain that. Now if I turn this off, what it does, the receiving shadow of that, this can render to cast the shadow here. If I switch this off, you can see that it no longer be able to visible here. That's why some peoples have some problem with having the shadow, by they are just switching this off, but we need to switch this on the both of the object to get enable the shadow of that, to make a enjoyable experience of that, to make a cool out of that stuff. Okay, let's get into the next one. It is called as motion vectors. If it is an enabled, then what it does is it will actually calculates the motion of vectors renders into the camera for a motion vector textures. So to see that, you can get into the online, so you can hit that render.motion vector generation then mode. I will give that in a description. You can get that in a quick. I will explain that too. What is that mode is that it's a motion vector that tracks the per pixel of that object. If you look at this, you got a per pixel of that object that tracks and transfers the information to specific image effects. That does some effects. What does effect it does is it will affect like blur effect, to get the blur effect for the for the object, and also for the temporary anti-alias things for that makes the object really good in the finish. Now if you look at that, we got a another mode which is like a materials. Actually, if you look at this, the materials, what is that material? It's a list of a material that render in the material itself, this material. Okay, this material which is gonna be rendered with that. Before getting into the dynamic accumulator, let's look at the static mode, or what is a static and what is a dynamic mode. The dynamic, as the name suggests, the dynamic is the moving, and the static is the it does not move. The object will stays at the one place which is not moved entire of its time, which is compilation period. So if you look at this in the top here, you will have a static object. Okay, just forget about the arrow over here. Now if you look at that, you have a box right here. If you click this box, what does it says that now if you look at this, the lighting static object enables. What it does is the object which you have selected is static. It does not want to render in the another mode. What if I just take this off? Okay, now the render mode just changed to a global render mode, which is like getting more performance for that. If you want to reduce the performance, you are gonna need the static mode. Whenever you have a object which is not movable, but don't use this static mode when your object is moved, like that. So which means that this one, and now from this you can relate this type of dynamic accumulated stuff. This dynamic accumulator, when it is turned on, what it does, it does not looks the object whether it is a static or not static, set not static to the, it does the same stuff like that, like performing the better, like occurring some accumulation cuttings. Okay, what is an accumulation cutting? Is a unity pre-functional feature for disabling the render of that object whenever the object are not currently seen by the camera, because it just get the maximum performance of your game. But if you make a object like if you have a more number of triangles, I will talk about triangles later, but more number of triangles, I mean that I will talk about the number of the time, how long the number of the triangle we can use in this editor. I will talk about that later. Now just take it a triangle, how long the triangle, how many of the triangle is in the scene. Now if you look at this, you can see that the object here, we can see that behind that object we cannot see that, but the camera can see that. That's why you can have the object to static and accumulation occurs here. So this way you can actually reduce the performance of that, and we can increase the performance by reducing the extraction of the GPU time. If you not set it to a static, it will take a lot of GPU performance and decreasing FPS and also your GPU lifetime too. So make it like that. Whenever you have a objects in the stationary, just use the static object and accumulation occurs settings, it will be all turned up to fine. Okay guys, the next one is a colliders, which is used for a paint volume stuff like that. So I will collapse this. We will open up a add component, just right click here and hit like box collider. I will go in depth with mesh collider and other collider. Just make it a box collider the first. If you look at that box collider, you have a ease trigger, material center, size and stuff like that. What is all states, and each of these stuff makes sense of that. Now starting with the ease trigger. Now if you look at the ease trigger, it says that if enable this trigger, it collider is used for triggering the event and ignoring by the physics engine. Okay, what is that says that if I turn this on, Okay, if I switch this on, now what the what the mechanics of physics does not consider it is an object. So if you walk through this plane, it does when if I turn this off, it does create. That's why we have adding a box collider. It does like blocks the player without walking inside here. Okay, now if I check this on, now what this kind of says that you can walk in. It disables the completely access of physics component in here. So that's why we can use this as in our paint volume stuff like that. So we will be making a 25% of paint volume in this. Now in here the next one is a center. Okay, what is the center of that? It is a center of this plane. It is a like if I change this, you can see that it's a box rather from the cube. It's a box which is just make a player or walk inside that. Just a face over here, the player cannot walk inside. If you check this, the player can walk inside that. Okay, you can set this one to a whatever you are want to make it there. Just move a little bit in the forward, and like the stuff in the future you will require that stuff. X is the red, Y is the green. I will see that Y is the green here, and Z is the blue, like that. Now moving to the size. Okay, what is the size of that? So if you look at this cube, you can notice that cube has a size, length and a breadth. So now if I increase the size, if I want more stuff in here, I can increase the size a bit. So remember that by increasing this one makes sense by using some awesome stuff, but remember that do use a ease trigger, or otherwise if you use this in the game, the player will see that it is like a hacking stuff that whenever a player walks in this without the checked here, the player will see that he will blocked by this. It will have a lot much distance after he should block, but make sure you do that correctly by making it back to 1. That's the big difference in your game when you publish it right here. Just do all there. After that we'll wind it up. Now if you look at that, we have a cool and awesome features. You will just like it if you look at that. Now if you look at this, it has a edit collider. Now what is that? Now if you get in here, hop here, you can see that editing the collider by holding right after the clicking the control, the pin center in the place, and holding the shift after the control, it can handle the size uniformly. Okay, the alt and a shift. Okay, well, let's click this first. Right click, and as soon as you right click that, you can see that a change occurs here. You can see that it has a 4 different faces. Now if you click this, hold right click and pull up, you can see that you can actually modify the center. Actually not center, you can set it. Oh, okay. What this does, if when you increase this, the center point will move. Remember that the center point will move there, and it will increase this, and also in the y-axis. Now if you look at this, now if I press a shift and can click this object and move, it will increase in the size. What it says here, it says that whenever you press a shift and makes click on that, right click, hold right click and pull that, it will make the size more bigger on each of the sides. Now what if I use a some like let's use for alt is used for panning around stuff like that. Okay, that's the end of that, but we have a material tool. Okay, what is a material? This material is used for in the future you will require that in when you are making especially in 2D games like that. and when you are making also a 3D stuff, when it gets complicated over there, when you got a player walking around the bottom of that and just he jumps up there and he just come over here on the right and just jumps again, he will stuck into the cube because of the collider. That's the major problem of that. It should not collide, then your game should be not played by any of them. It will decrease your viewers like that stuff, but to block that stuff and to get more views and more reviews on that, you can use this cool awesome stuff that called the physics material. What this does, you can actually add a material like that. Now for now I have no material attached, and in the future I will show that how to attach that physics material to that object. Now this object, for example, if I want to use a slippery material, I can use that slippery material, the oily material that can be used for that player to slip around the part when he cannot hit and just stuck into the middle part of that. That's pretty much everything for this video. Hope you get a new information from this. If this video sucked, you know what to do. If it was an awesome, then hit that like button, consider subscribing, and for more videos, enable the notification, and be awesome. Keep creating. Nihal Knights EDU signing out.
This video is made possible by my supporters on the Dreadeye. If you want more videos like this, then check out my Dreadeye page, is in the link in the description. To stay up to date on my new releases, make sure you have follow me on my social media.